MDFC cards, which are lands on one half and spells on the other, are basically the best cards you can include in your commander decks. And I'm going to tell you why you should run them in basically every casual commander deck. But first, if you like my videos, consider subscribing and checking out the Patreon. Okay, so Modal double-faced cards, or MDFCs for short, are cards that have two sides. But unlike a card that transforms into a stronger side once a condition is met, an MDFC can be played on either side. So it's basically two cards in one. This by itself is already really powerful. Flexibility is important in casual commander. As I play more EDH, I've begun to shy away from cards that only destroy one permanent type. I've been playing less Path to Exiles and more Get Loss. Unlike in CEDH, where mana efficiency is king, the difference between 1, 2, and 3 mana interaction is not nearly as impactful in casual commander. And every game with a random player means I could run into an aura deck or a clue deck. It's not just going to be creatures attacking me all the time. I need to be able to interact with artifacts and enchantments, or whatever else my opponent might be playing. This is why I really like modal cards like Charms. Archmage's Charm can either draw cards, counter a spell, or steal a soul ring. Rakdos Charm can be artifact removal or graveyard hate, which I try to include in every deck. It also randomly will stop certain combos with that third mode, and many of the new spree cards from Thunder Junction, like Smuggler's Surprise, 3 Steps Ahead, or Final Showdown, are all excellent modal spells. And there are great MDFCs which are modal spells like this. Some of them are pretty underrated. Augmenter Pugilist and its backside Echoing Equation are so good. The front half is just a big dude if you need it. But turning all your creatures into a copy of one is so powerful, and Echoing Equation fixes the legend rule by just making the copies not legendary. So if you're in a Spellslinger deck with Talrand in the 99, you can turn all of those Drakes into Talrands, and then make a tremendous amount of Drakes with just a couple of spells. You can also turn all your random tokens into a Gutter Snipe, and then cast a bunch more spells to deal a ton of damage. It's such a cool card. Blackx is also a really neat, underrated commander. Yeah, you can go Pest Tribal, but I think a lot of people forget that the sorcery side on the other half is really good. This lets you mill and draw a ton of cards. Search for Blackx is insane in a Reanimator self-mill graveyard deck. And because of how MDFCs work, you can cast the search side, choose to leave it in your graveyard instead of going back to the command zone. And then, while in the graveyard, Blackx counts as a creature, because MDFCs are always their front half in any other zone. So you can just play Creature Recursion to get Blackx back, and then cast Search for Blackx again to get even more value. I'm really surprised I just don't see this card in more graveyard decks. But the most powerful MDFC has to be the ones that are lands on the other side. These are the best cards made for casual commander ever. Normally, every card you put in your deck has some opportunity cost, meaning the cost of choosing that card over another card. Essentially, it takes a slot in your deck. Even Soul Ring, for example. When you put a Soul Ring in your deck, you have lost the opportunity to play a card which is better on turn 8. Soul Ring is a very bad top deck. Now, does the power of Soul Ring in the early turns outweigh the cost? Yeah, Soul Ring is a really good card. But my point is that every card has some opportunity cost to include in your deck, even really powerful staples. Which is why you need a good mix of cards in any deck. You need lands, card draw, ramp, removal, and your on-theme cards. And anything that's not synergistic to your deck's theme means that your opportunity cost is playing on-theme cards. But if you play all on-theme cards that are just win more synergy pieces, your deck is going to lack removal, card draw, and ramp, and probably won't function very well overall. But MDFCs have almost no opportunity cost. Let's look at Ondu Inversion. One side is a board wipe, and the other is a tapped land. The only cost here is playing a land that enters tapped, instead of a plains. But unless there is a turn where you really needed an untapped land to win or prevent a loss, that cost will essentially never show up. The card is basically all upside in every other situation. Same for all of these. Balaged Recovery, Valakut Awakening, Hagra Mauling. This gives you recursion, card draw, removal, board wipes in your land slot. And the Mythic MDFCs can come into play untapped at the cost of 3 life. And in Commander, 3 life is not much of a cost. So these mythic MDFCs are even more free to include than the tapped ones. These days, when I tell people you should have 8 to 10 pieces of spot removal, 2 to 4 board wipes, and 10 pieces of card draw, a lot of players say they struggle to fit all of those into a deck and still have room for all of their on-theme cards. And although I've talked about this in a previous video about making your on-theme cards also fit your ramp and removal package, MDFCs are a really great way to get extra slots as well. You need more removal in your green deck? Cut a forest for Kalani Ambush. Need more protection for your Voltron deck? Cut a plains for Sajari Shelter. Want removal in a red deck that has sack outlets? Cut a mountain for Song Mad Treachery. This idea can also be extended to the channel lands from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. These are arguably better because channeling is an ability, not a spell, so you can cast this without worrying about counter magic. Honestly, I've even started testing with the weaker MDFCs as well. Spikefield Hazard comes in handy, even if it's just 1 damage. Using it on something that was about to die just so it gets exiled has saved me before. And Makindi Stampede, even though it's a weaker overrun, has helped me get lethal still. There are some other synergies to explore as well. In Casual Commander, games can go long, so you really want your deck to be able to grind and not run out of gas too easily. So I want to get as much value as I can from my lands over the course of a long game. That's why I've been testing with the bounce lands to get extra use from my MDFCs. Late game, you can bounce the MDFCs to hand, which lets you then use the spell half. I plan to get some Karoo lands and Guildless Commons to test this out in my monocolor decks as well. I also want to test out Mana Severance because it removes all the lands from your deck, but with MDFCs, I could still make a few of my land drops, but still combo Mana Severance with cards like Goblin Charbelcher. But that's going to require a very specific deck. So that's why I love MDFCs. They're the ultimate charm card. They have essentially no opportunity cost, and being able to choose between a land or a spell is so powerful. I've been putting MDFCs in more of my decks, and I'll probably continue to do so as long as my decks are not at a power level where a couple of tap lands will cost me the game. Maybe if they print more of these, I might end up with too many tap lands or too many lands that tap for 1 color, but until then, I'm going to be running MDFCs in every deck. But what do you think? Excluding budget, because I know a couple of these are kind of pricey, do you play cards like Sullen Divisions or other MDFCs in every deck? What about some of the weaker ones like Zoff Consumption? Is that still worth it? I think so. Are you on the MDFC train? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so very much for watching, and special thanks to my tier 3 patrons, whose names you see here. If you also want to be in the credits, check out the Patreon.